episode of Tech Tuesday. My guest today is Mary Furlong. She has been doing, I think I may be doing this wrong. She's been doing age tech stuff longer than just about anybody I know. She's one of the first people I ever met when I started writing about the space. She runs some amazing events, and we are just going to talk about her events and aging technology. But first, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Mary, welcome. It was great to see you in San Diego a few weeks ago at the Nick Spring Conference. It had been years since we'd actually been face to face, and that was really terrific. Thank you for joining me today for Tech Tuesday. Let's start with kind of you just talking about who you are and your history in age tech and what you do.
So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been building companies in the longevity market for about 35 years. So my first company was seniornet.org. That was before AOL, so a long time ago, first social network on the internet. We were part of AOL in the beginning, ran that for 10 years, had 100 learning centers across the US and Canada and Australia. Then I created Third Age Media with wonderful co-founders, and Third Age was part of the Viacom portfolio. So they were CBS Sportsline, CBS MarketWatch. We were sort of the lifestyle play. And we had an amazing team that we worked with for 7 years, and then sold that to Ancestry. And then I went on to create the third company. One of my friends said, "You build companies the way other people bake cakes." So anyway, the third company was a newsletter, and we started conferences, and now we have podcasts and a wonderful list of clients. But we've been doing the Longevity Venture Summit for 22 years now. So we've given away over $210,000 to best ideas in the longevity market. So my whole career has been at the nexus of the digital marketplace and the longevity marketplace.
So talk to me a little bit about kind of the shifts that you've seen through the years in this whole longevity technology space.
Well, what I would say, there's an orchestra of talent globally coming into the market. So 2 weeks ago, the World Economic Forum was in Japan, and there were people there talking about the market. We have venture investors like Isaac Hakohen coming from Israel to be part of our competition. So the amount of effort that people are putting into building companies, investing in the market. And I think that was one of the, so that's very exciting. So 22 years ago or 35 years ago, people thought, sometimes they think you're a visionary. Sometimes they think, you're really strange with your ideas. So when I started SeniorNet, it took me 2 years to get funded. I was fortunate to find Lloyd Morissette, who had been the co-founder of Sesame Street, to have an interest in older adults and technology and to fund my work for 10 years. So one change is that the demographics have changed. So what was exciting at the Nick conference, where you and I were sitting together, as one of the big trends was, yes, there's real estate investing in the next 10 years for data warehouses and AI, but the second biggest trend was senior housing. So who couldn't be excited about that? I started my work when I was in my 30s. I'm going to be 77 this year, and the boomers are going to be 80 in January next year at the top end. So the demographics really are our destiny. So as Steve Jurvetson said, if you take the three trends of demographics, technology, and the regulatory environment, you can look at those three trends and you'll see that it's a pretty exciting time to be an investor, an entrepreneur, or a senior housing provider with this huge market. So one change is just the orchestra of talent. There's age tech meetups all around the world now, and that's continuing to grow. And it's not just entrepreneurs and investors. It's also stakeholders like Panasonic and Samsung and AOL who realize that this is a large market. So when I started the Venture Summit 22 years ago, I went to NEA and I talked to Dick Kremlich, and he said, well, we invest in healthcare, but then when they looked at the healthcare spend, a lot of that healthcare spend was aging, and he joined as a judge. So this year, we're going to have more investors than we've ever had before at our conference in June 11th and 12th, and we even have an investor track. And that's another trend I saw at NIC, is that there were a lot of investors coming into the market. And so it's a very exciting time to be in a market. Why would you leave if so much is coming in your direction, correct?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's interesting to me is when I think about the technology space. So I remember the first time I came to your conference, it was at the University of Santa Clara, right? And the thing that I was so excited about more than anything else was your pitch event. And I remember it was first thing in the morning. I had to get down there early, and I was going to walk in and I was going to see all this amazing technology that was going to blow me away. And I'm going to confess to you that I walked out of there very disillusioned, because I just felt like nobody had really presented anything that was very impressive. The one thing that really struck me back then, and it's changed, I'm going to start by saying it's changed a lot since then, is that it was mostly people who had come up with a big idea because of an interaction they'd had typically with their grandmother, and they assumed that that was the thing that was going to apply to every older people that existed in the universe. And of course, that's not necessarily a very good way. In fact, I'm just going to say not even necessarily. That's just not a very good way to figure out technology. It might be a good for a spark of an idea, but you've got to test it out. But today, there's so much more sophistication, and you're really leading in that whole process and guiding companies to do that. That when I was at the pitch, that I was in Florida a few weeks ago for a pitch fest for Senior Living 100, and there was some really interesting stuff there. And even at CES in January, there was some really interesting things there.
Well, I can't say enough about Amelia Hay and the Age Tech Collaborative, who come in as the co-host of this event, and the amazing work they've done over the past 8 years and building that ecosystem. And I used to not talk about my conferences in the context of an ecosystem, but there is an ecosystem in this market that is nonprofit, for-profit, entrepreneur, investor, corporation, and senior housing has a huge role to play in that. In fact, it often excites me when you see companies like Human Good, where they also have an investing arm, so they can both spot an innovation and they can also help take it to market. So whenever we co-create, that's always better. Another trend in the market, and Steve, you're right. I mean, we have seen companies come out of our competition that have gotten term sheets the next day from Ziegler Linkage. So Ziegler Linkage has been part of this from the beginning. Dan Herman's coming to our conference again as a judge. But, Equitage Ventures now was funded last Monday. Danny Kaplan's coming in, long history in home care, and really knows what he's doing with senior housing as well, with his managing partner, Adam Kaplan from Solterra Senior Living. So one of the big things that I've seen, I've gone to universities like Wharton and I've said, here's the trends in the market. Well, we had a company that was 100 million plus in revenue that came out of the competition the first year, PEP Plan Insurance. In the UK, they have it. In the US, they don't. Anything that's expensive for an older person trying to age in place at home is a problem. It could be your trees, it could be your dog. So they were spot on. But another thing that I've seen is that unlike your example of the grandparent, if you go to Stanford Biodesign, and I think we've had 8 winners out of Stanford Biodesign, including Venka, those students go to the hospital and they look at the use case of what they're seeing in the hospital. Well, the same thing with the NIA. So the National Institute on Aging has done an amazing job of helping take the research community that really understands the needs of the market, combined with the entrepreneur community. And we've had a lot of those kinds of companies. So there's a company coming called Able Care, and Able Care can do preventative work around fall detection. If we can do a better job of screening at a time, I haven't asked you if you've had a knee replacement. I'm sure there's one on my dance card in the future. A lot of my friends have had them, but mobility is going to be a big category. So having the combination of the best researchers looking at a category and the best entrepreneurs, and then incubators and others providing support and growth for the company. A company exhibiting this year, Neurosantos, has a device that can help with your mobility and your balance. And so you can go to a senior living community and get training and balance. That saves the senior community a lot of money if someone doesn't fall. It saves on insurance, it saves on liability, it saves wear and tear with your staff. And so anything we can do on the right side of wellness and improved cognition, those are things that you'll find at our conference. So it's been fun to be part of an industry that's grown. And whether it's music or memory or mobility, all of those are relevant. And the best senior housing communities like Sequoia, where Michael Scaife is now, they have sophisticated people looking at the technologies and assessing the value that are there. And another trend I think we're going to be looking at is where home care and senior housing come together as an investment opportunity, and also the role of AI in all of that.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of AI. I use AI essentially every day in all kinds of things I do. And so can you talk to me or at your conference? Actually, let's back up before I ask this question, because I think I need to set the stage better. Talk to me a little bit about your upcoming conference that's happening in the Bay Area. Where is it? What are the dates? What are kind of the highlights there?
So the conference is June 9th, 10th, and 11th at the Claremont Hotel. We're back in Oakland. The theme is connecting investors, innovators, and distribution partners in the longevity market. So there are more investors in every category. So we have a big panel on Breakfast with the Angels. We have research, a deep dive into research about the financial markets with Mark Mahaney, research about the longevity market with Ken Dykewald and Patty David at ARP. Because I think if you go to the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, it's getting the research that shapes the trend. So we always have a strong research component. We even have Dominic Carter coming from Japan to talk about the growth of the market in Japan. Then we have these TED-like talks, and I found some amazing experts in digital media. Jeff Cole, who shaped a lot of media strategy at ARP and other places. Ryan Cotton, who I met on a ship called The World, which I recommend you all go on one day if you get a chance. And he gave several talks on the ship, and I was so impressed at private client practice and what we learned about wellness. We have the California State Department on Aging, Susan Damaris, who's going to do a fireside chat with Jeannie Parker Martin, who is with Leading Age California. We have a wonderful panel on the future of healthcare with Sarita Mohanty and Nirav Shah, who we saw keynote the NNEC conference. We have a business plan competition with Seven Wire Ventures and Common Spirit Health and Cabby and Ziegler and Equitage Ventures. And we have AI implementation in the market. And we have Lori Orlov's new report on AI, where she's interviewed 25 people. But then we have a panel of experts who have come out of those interviews that are showing the trends of how AI is used to improving, both, we learned some of this at NIC, but a lot of it is improving staff performance, but it's also helping make people be more human to human because a lot of those other tasks are being done. Also, how are people driving leads into senior living and communities? And then what are people looking at late stage venture? Because we have people going to market and looking for distribution, we have distribution partners, and we also have people pitching for distribution. So now when you say, I'm going to go into this market, you need 7 channels. You need a 7-channel strategy. It's no longer okay just to go to the state of New York and get funding, although a lot of people I know doing that, certainly Greg Olson is one of the leaders. But who do you talk to? Who's the CIOs in senior living? Who are the CEOs that are most forward looking? And what are their performance metrics? And so we have people on the pitch for distribution. And then we have a bunch of boot camps, because certainly this year, more than any other year, people have had to pivot. They've had to pivot in the last 3 months. They've had to move fast. And how are they pivoting? And what can we learn from the decisions that they're making? More and more, when I hear from entrepreneurs, they're out meeting with customers. They're in states, they're talking to senior housing communities, they're getting traction. So what's different now today, there's still the demographics, they don't change. It's only gotten better for us. The technology has only gotten better. The regulatory environment, that's a lot to understand today. So this conference, we include some aspects of the regulatory environment. Everybody should really know in detail what the Master Plan of California is, but they should also know what's going on in Washington, and we'll cover both.
Good. And so do you, this has been a topic at most of the conferences, so I'm going to throw it at you. I didn't give you an advance warning, and so you can punt on this if you like. Do you think that the Trump administration is making it better or worse for aging technology?
I'm not going to answer that question because I think we don't know yet. I think what we need to do is to really, in detail, understand the landscape of changes. So if we took a category like Social Security, which I think is critically important to people, I really like the edit to the original decision that now you can call the Social Security office. And so I've been part of 4 White House conferences on aging. I was there for the Democrats. I was there for the Republicans. I even got the sponsor for the dinner when the Republicans were running the White House conference. To date, I don't think there is a White House conference scheduled, but I would wish and hope there might be. So I programmed the June conference around investment strategy. We programmed the December conference around policy decisions in Washington and around caregiving as an issue. Now, there's going to be a need to program a global strategy. So am I disappointed that the sponsor I had from Ontario can't travel to the US right now because of changes in policy? He said I could move my conference to Paris, which sounded fun. I've always wanted to cover fashion trends and older adults. But for now, we're all dealing with some of the changes that have happened, and we need to really take a deep dive and understand the changes. And we also need to understand what's working and what isn't working. What I love to watch over time are scaling companies. So Silverite is scaling. They are working with PACE programs. Transportation is going to be a huge issue. One of the smartest things I heard at our December conference from Jenny Poth of Ziegler was, she said, you want to know what the issues are for mobility? Talk to the bus driver in a senior community who's helping people on and off the bus. So if you don't have a strategy around mobility, around brain health, these are issues that are going to become incredibly important, because there's a line in my book, which you shouldn't buy, it's 21 years old, but I'm hoping to update it, that every dissonance of aging is a market opportunity. And so if you're a leader in senior communities, you're seeing these opportunities. We're programming around wellness for the first time. And of course, the Claremont is a great place for relaxation, rejuvenation, and wellness. Another issue is the haves and the have-nots. I mean, unhoused older people is a big issue in the Bay Area, and I'm sure across the country. One of the things I'm most excited about is the opportunities for a revitalization of low-income housing with technology. And so I'm hoping that we will touch this issue. And I'm an optimist. So I always look at being an advocate, but also an evangelist for the market. And I have to tell you, every day I am humbled by the talent of people dedicated to innovating in the market.
Yeah, I think that we are in a very chaotic time because of where we're at as a nation. We're in a chaotic time because there are a whole bunch of us. I'm a boomer, as you are. We're getting older and we have bigger needs, and it seems pretty apparent that we don't have enough resources. We're not going to have enough resources, and so how do we make everything more efficient? And I do think that technology becomes this wonderful, wonderful tool to enable everything to be more efficient, to get us better answers, to reduce the amount of the human component on drudgery kinds of things. So as you look into the future, where do you see AI going?
I had a wonderful Easter holiday yesterday. I saw one of the little 2-year-olds walking around with a blue and purple balloon. My sister sent me a poem this morning about a child carrying a balloon that was created with ChatGPT. I think that the older adult audience is going to use AI as today and in the future, the way that the boomers, when technology was first introduced in the marketplace, and I was there because, they were giving computers to schools when I was at Catholic University many years ago. I was the first to sort of say, let's take technology and put it into senior communities. That was very novel at the time. There weren't a lot of us. It took 2 years to fund SeniorNet. But today, there's going to be research that's done with AI on the part of not only the boomers, but on the part of the caregivers. And so what we have, and look at companies like AOL, we have Gina by coming to the conference and talking, an interview with Michael Scape from Sequoia Senior Living and Sherry Rose from Thrive. And if you look at the growth of AOL, and I'm still Furlong at AOL. I ran into Steve Case the other day, the founder of AOL. He says, I like that you stayed in the lane that you were in, but you've got people who we always knew that older people have more time on their hands. They read more books, they contribute, they volunteer, they have to go on health portals. So there's a need for digital literacy that's always going to be with us. There's going to be a need to take digital literacy into remote communities. And so I think that there's no question that you're going to take the most well-educated global older adult population empowered by technologies. They're going to be using those technologies to stay in the game and to send things to their children, their grandchildren, that they can inform. Their wisdom will be truly enhanced by AI.
Okay, so one of the things I've been approached by several entrepreneurs who have created AI platforms to essentially to have conversations with older people, to create sort of an AI-based companion service. And I have very mixed feelings about that. I wonder if that is dehumanizing, that normally now I don't actually need people because I can just talk to a computer. And my flip side of that is two things. One is that I find as I interact with my AI platforms, I have conversations with them that seem awfully creepily human. And I say please and thank you to them, to these machines, which is a little weird. And of course, the other thing that strikes me is that I first became acquainted with these mechanical cats that behaved like real cats that at your conference that Ted had. And I thought it was so creepy when I saw it up on the stage, and then he put one in my arms, and it was remarkably realistic. So what do you think? Is that a good idea, bad idea? Are we diminishing people by making them talk to computers or suggesting they should talk to computers rather than real people?
The issue of social isolation in older adults has been one of the cornerstone issues throughout my whole work. Building community is one of the important things we can do. One of the ways that senior communities are outstanding is the way they build and foster community. You see those faces. And I don't think anyone's ready yet or prepared enough for when boomers lose partners, right? And then what happens when you start navigating that life alone? So I have heard an interview Dor and talk about intuition robotics and listen to the number of people actually engaging with EloQ. But I also read the amazing post that Neil Shaw of Karyaya sent over the weekend about, yes, we can enjoy our lives with these little ones, but not everyone has little ones nearby in their life. And I can see the need for us to reach out on a human level. And now more than ever, I mean, today, this Easter Monday, we lost the Pope. He reminded us in his last stories to be more engaged with others, to really think about who is listening to us. I was joking with my friends the other day. I said, no one whistles at us anymore. You know, you get to be this age, and it's rare that you see someone. Well, what do we want more than to be? No. Now, if I had an AI robot here and the AI robot reminded me of my to-do list for today, then I would like that a lot, because especially if I forgot something yesterday that they could remember. And so I do think there is a role for the technology in our lives. And I do think I'm reading this amazing book that Lori Orloff sent me on strength training, which I think those of us that want to stay in the game, strength training is going to be really important. So something that tracks that and says, you've got this one done, but not that one done. So there's a way in which you could take the metrics around wellness, both inside senior communities and in home care and just on our own, and say there's a use for technology. It doesn't replace having someone there at dinner or someone that you can engage in. But I think that designing the mosaic for this next phase of your life, when we're going to be going through the 80s, the 90s, and hopefully up to 100 together, we're going to need all the best of the best. And so those leaders that are not only looking at your food menu, looking at things. I love the company Chefs for Seniors that comes into your house, interacts with you. It's a franchise business. I was part of helping the founder in the beginning, and they make meals that can last for a week. But, you know, just getting ready for a party I had this weekend, there was the window washer, there was the carpet cleaner, there was the people that helped me plant in the garden for things that we can't do. So there's a growth in services. And one of the things I'm very excited about is creativity in senior communities, art, music, gardening, performances. I think everyone's ready to play again. And when I had SeniorNet, my father when I had third age, my father came to visit one day. He had a paint business called Plyon. And he said, he looked around at the 200 people that were working there. I said, I think you should call this Play On. In some ways, I think the boomers are ready to play on, and so are their older friends.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, I mean, the thing that strikes me, I think that the area that senior living is in many respects in a very early stage of grappling with is that what people are looking for are experiences. And so traditionally, senior living has talked more about things like safety and security, and nutrition, you know, at a very basic level. And what people are really saying is, you know, I've got another 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, maybe 30 years. And I want to be able to have real meaningful experiences. And that doesn't mean just entertainment experiences. I want to have experiences where some of it's going to be entertainment, some of it's going to be giving back, some of it's going to be continuing to learn, some of it's going to be physical. And that if we can use technology to create great experiences, we have something super special, I think.
I love that Benjamin Bloom quote about, I think it was him, about cater peak experience. People want cater peak experiences with like-minded souls. So I was reading about Enzo Village in Hillsburg. I think that's Sean Kelly's. Amazing community. And one of the things they're doing is they're co-creating from the ground up these affinity communities of interest.
Yep.
So I haven't been to a protest, but I've been noticing that some of my friends and walkers are protesting. So you've got a very spirited community. I mean, at Rossmore nearby, there was a fight on the pickleball court. Pickleball is going to be a big topic. I know several people innovating in the fun and pickleball space. And so whether it's music's going to be huge as the boomers get older. So, I mean, it would be fun to create a dance card of what would you have? You'd have the best food that you could create that was healthy. You'd have the best wellness and spa. You'd have the best library. You'd have afternoon tea. That could merge into happy hour. You'd have the best technology with your own geek squad as part of that. And then I don't know of any senior community that doesn't want access to intergenerational. So they might be the mentors and the young people are the reverse mentors. But when people say, oh, we're not going to need a system operator as we get older, we all need someone to fix the printer. I'm sorry. It's just, or you get a new phone. Your children don't want to take their precious time fixing your phone. And so if you could have the best technology and the best technology, it's only going to go more and more in that direction. And we're always going to need to know new applications.
Absolutely right. So, Mary, we're about out of time. I'd like to take the last 40 seconds to have you just sort of give us the high-level pitch for the conference, why senior living exec leaders should be there.
The reason I think people should come to the conference is to hear people who are the thought leaders in the space of longevity. We've had John Cochran, we've had Michael Scaife, we've had Riverwood Senior Living, Dan Herman, who knows so much and so geo-targeted. There's Gina Bike, who's been in the space for a long time. There's such an abundance of talent. And then also to see the entrepreneurs who work day to day to build things, and also the investors who have a really good sense of the market and know which investments are paying off, not to mention the government, which is supporting some of the funding, and to see that deal flow at a global level. Yeah. It's pretty exciting. I feel so privileged to work with the people that I do. It's an amazing ride. It really is.
So you guys should all attend. I'll be there. And Mary, thank you so much for joining me today.
Always fun, Steve. Yeah, thank you. And thanks to the senior communities for all the great work that they do.